Welcome back to Rattle Week. My name's Seth, and I'm one of the pastors here at the Tabernacle. And on Tuesday of Holy Week, we find Jesus in Matthew 22 and 23, and he's addressing a crowd. And part of this crowd is a group of curious onlookers, and they're his faithful friends and followers. And then there's this segment of teachers, of experts, they're Pharisees and Sadducees. And if you had questions of religious practice, method, anything, you went to these types. And the first part of this is this religious group grilling and taxing Jesus really for entrapment. But Jesus, after surviving and navigating this, turns his attention to the curious and the faithful. And he said, these men should be honored. Listen to them. Listen to their observations. Listen to their teachings, but do not follow the ways of their life. And he'd go on to issue 7 woes because of the words that were professed lacked the intentionality of their heart and the way of their lives. And so Jesus would go on to challenge them in such a way of if they didn't change these things, it would lead to death. And it reminds me of this little league team that I used to play in baseball. And it was almost awkward because in this group, you'd see these 2 groups of dads. There's these 2 dads who were friends of mine, and yet you knew the love that they had for their son, and yet you'd listen to them belittle, demean, and really badger these little boys into, if it was a rough game, you watched the very character, the very essence of them just shrink. Their words weren't matching what their heart was saying. It's hypocrisy. And yet on the flip side of that, here was a stepdad of a friend of mine who quietly would reach out with words of affirmation, words of thanks, nice job, keep working. And it wasn't just to his stepson, but if his stepson knew you, he would say, hey, Seth, hey, Matt, whether you were a teammate or an opponent, there was encouragement, there was building up, there was life-giving. And just like Jesus to that crowd and those dads to those little boys, we have a challenge that before we look out, before we really cast out, we have to ask the question first in our own heart. We have to have eyes, and not out as the world does, but in, for the challenges that we need in our hearts. Does it match the passion we have here? Is there a work that we need to do here before we go out? So before we look out, before we cast out, we have to look in. We have to drill down. And so my invitation for you today is to really look at and to pray over where's the hypocrisy of my life? Are my words leading to death? Are they professing something that I'm not living out in my own heart? Just like those Pharisees, just like those leaders. Are we giving life or are we teaching death? And in Christ, that's the only spot. So what's the invitation to drill down for you today? The challenge that you need to take up in your own heart today?